There's a kind of silence that isn't peaceful. It doesn't hum with stillness or clarity. It buzzes, like static just behind your ears. That's the silence I lived in for 13 months. 13 months of pretending I believed her. 13 months of nodding in therapy sessions while Megan cried about how she felt unseen. 13 months of watching her post fake deep quotes on Instagram about healing, all while sneaking out 4-girl trips with her best friend Jenna, who couldn't lie to save her life. The same Jenna who once called me the rock every woman wants, back before she knew I was disposable. I wasn't always silent. I used to beg. The first time I found the messages, I fell apart. I cried. I asked her why. I offered solutions. We tried therapy. She said it was a mistake. That it wasn't about the intimacy, it was about feeling needed. And like a fool, I believed her. I did the work. Got more vulnerable. Bought flowers for no reason. Learned how to cook gluten-free just because she thought she might be intolerant. But something in her never came back. She smiled, sure. She even laughed sometimes. But her eyes had this distant glaze, like I was a placeholder, just furniture in the house we once called home. She never held me anymore. Said she was just touched out. Too tired. Said I didn't understand how hard things had been while I was focused on my job. She never said I was the problem, not directly. But it was in the pauses. The cold shoulders. The way she always answered texts a little too quickly when I walked into the room. And still, I gave her every benefit of the doubt. I wanted to believe the version of her I married, the one who wore Converse to our wedding and cried when I surprised her with tickets to see her favorite band. I told myself that version of her was still buried underneath the mood swings, the emotional distance, the nights out she never explained. It wasn't until the air tag that I finally shut up and paid attention. I was vacuuming out the back seat of her car, it was Sunday, she was out doing yoga or mimosas, I can't remember which. I found it tucked under the liner in the trunk, taped down with electrical tape. Sleek. Subtle. Not mine. I sat in the driveway with it in my palm, just watching the little dot blink on my phone. Then I checked the name of the device. It was called T's Ride. I remember just staring at it. Something broke inside me, not like a glass shattering, more like a joint popping out of place. A cold realization that I'd been lied to, again, and I hadn't even seen it because I was too busy hoping she'd turn back into the woman I fell in love with. That day, I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't confront her. I didn't say a word. I just started taking notes. Her schedule was easier to track than I expected. She'd grown lazy, or maybe she thought I'd given up. Either way, her patterns were obvious. Thursday nights were suddenly book club, though I never saw a single new book in the house. Saturday mornings were now sacred solo hikes. She always came back glowing. Flushed. More relaxed than therapy ever made her. Every excuse sounded like it had been copy-pasted from a blog about rediscovering self-love. In the quiet, I became sharper. I noticed everything. The way she always kept her phone face down. The way she'd jump to answer texts mid-conversation with me but let mine go unread. The receipts she left on the passenger seat, 2 meals, 1 glass of white wine, 1 whiskey neat. T didn't drink wine. I started saving screenshots. Taking photos. GPS pings. I followed her once. Just once. Saw them at a bar 2 towns over, him with his hand low on her back, her leaning in like they were his secret. And still, I didn't speak. I nodded when she said she needed space. I asked how therapy was going. I made her coffee. I kissed her cheek. But behind the curtain, I was assembling something. Not revenge. Not yet. Just, truth. I wanted the facts laid bare. I wanted the truth to scream louder than her lies. And more than anything, I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized I had never been blind. I was just waiting. There's a strange power in silence. In patience. It's not cowardice. It's calculation. When you stop trying to prove your worth to someone who already decided you're not enough, something shifts. You become dangerous. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to call her names. I wasn't going to send a midnight text begging for honesty. That part of me was dead now, buried with the man who used to think love could fix everything. Megan thought she was playing me. She thought she was juggling secrets and still winning the game. But I had already started planning her last surprise. A party. For her. I even booked the venue. Sent out the invites. Custom banner, themed cake, projector and all. She thought it was for her promotion. And technically, it was. But she'd learn soon enough. Some surprises are meant to end things, not celebrate them. And when that projector flicked on, I wouldn't have to say a single word. It's wild how fast you can forget who you are when you're busy trying to become someone else's idea of better. After I caught her the first time, everything became my fault. My lack of emotional depth. My inability to create safe space. My supposed fear of vulnerability. Never mind that I'd spent the last 5 years holding us both together through layoffs, a miscarriage, and her mom's cancer. Suddenly, I was the emotional wall. The reason she felt unseen. And I bought it. God help me, I bought it all. I started journaling. Meditating. I read books with titles like The Emotionally Available Man and Hold Me Tight. I even downloaded an app that sent me daily relationship prompts, little messages that asked if I'd checked in emotionally with my partner today. I'd leave her notes on the mirror. Lit candles before she got home. I picked up couples yoga and forced myself into poses my knees still regret. None of it mattered. The thing I didn't know then, but do now, is that people like Megan don't cheat because they're unloved. They cheat because they want to feel new again. It had nothing to do with who I was. It had everything to do with who she could pretend to be when she was with someone who didn't know her patterns. And this time, the guy was Tyler. He went by T-Rex online. No joke. That was his brand. Shirtless selfies, motivational quotes that somehow always included the word grind, and fitness advice delivered in the tone of a guy who peaked in high school. Megan swore he was just her trainer. I didn't even laugh when she said it. I was too numb by then. I'd seen the way she smiled after his texts. The way she turned her phone away when I walked in. I even heard his name once while she was in the shower, humming to herself like a teenager in love. I checked her social media, the subtle clues were there. A heart emoji on one of his stories. A new gym playlist named Power Sessions. Suddenly, she was wearing crop tops again. Buying pre-workout drinks with names like Venom Surge. I knew what was happening. But instead of confronting her, I adapted. I smiled more. I asked her about her day. I offered to join her gym but joked that I'd slow her down. I kept the peace, set the stage. Because by then, I wasn't trying to fix the marriage. I was preparing for its funeral. And funerals, at least the good ones, require planning. I started laying the groundwork the moment I decided to throw the party. I told her I wanted to celebrate her promotion, Director of Client Strategy, some title that meant more Zoom calls and fake praise. She lit up at the idea. Said it made her feel seen. I nodded. Played the supportive husband role so well I almost believed it myself. I picked a rooftop venue she'd always admired but said was too expensive for our anniversary. Booked a bartender. Ordered her favorite hors d'oeuvres. Even requested her favorite music, an embarrassing mix of indie pop and late 2000s throwbacks that would make any DJ quit on principle. But the real centerpiece wasn't the cake or the champagne. It was the projector. I told the planner it was for a career highlight reel. Something sentimental. What she didn't know was that I'd been curating a very different kind of presentation. Photos. Screenshots. Time-stamped receipts. Audio recordings from the home security cam she forgot we had. Nothing violent. Nothing cruel. Just the kind of truth you can't argue with. The kind that slaps harder when it's wrapped in silence and served in front of your coworkers. And the banner, God, the banner was the finishing touch. White satin, black lettering. It read, "Congrats on being single again." By the time I had it all together, something in me had shifted. I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't even angry, not in the explosive, messy way I used to be. What I felt was cleaner. Sharper. Like stepping out of a fog and realizing the bridge you were trying to save had already burned, and now, all that was left to do was sweep the ashes off your shoes and move forward. She'd convinced herself she was the victim. That I was some emotionally absent shell who left her no choice. She talked about deserving more in therapy sessions I paid for. She weaponized healing. Weaponized the very process meant to rebuild trust. Therapy became her alibi, not her effort. She lied with so much conviction it was almost impressive. I watched her float through our house like a ghost in active denial, hugging me before bed, posting selfies with captions about trusting the universe, texting him while I folded our laundry. It was like living with someone running a con they didn't even realize was obvious. But I kept playing my part. Kept the lights on. Played the playlist. Smiled when she mentioned late meetings. Took mental notes every time she said she was too tired for intimacy, but not too tired for 6 a.m. training sessions. I had to make sure she was comfortable walking into that party. She had to believe she was still in control. Because the power of betrayal isn't just in what they do to you, it's in what you do once you've seen it for what it is. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to key his car or show up at her gym with threats and drama. No. That wasn't me anymore. I was going to let her walk into a room filled with everyone who still believed her story. I was going to let her bask in the applause, the hugs, the praise for climbing the ladder, and balancing it all. And then, I was going to flip the lights off. Press play. And let the truth speak louder than I ever could. The night smelled expensive, faint champagne, perfume, polished tile. The rooftop buzzed with laughter, the kind that happens when people are just drunk enough to forget their networking. Everything was perfect. On the surface. I stood near the bar, nursing a drink I wouldn't finish, pretending to blend into the background of the party I had orchestrated. The waitstaff circled with canapes and practiced smiles. The music played soft indie beats with just enough irony. Every detail was tailored to Megan's tastes. Clean. Curated. Beautiful. The guests arrived in clusters, co-workers in slim-fit suits and cocktail dresses, friends from college pretending to be surprised, acquaintances there more for the gossip than the celebration. I saw her parents arrive too, looking proud, unsuspecting. Her mom kissed me on the cheek. Her dad clapped my back and asked if I'd finally taken time off work. I smiled. I thanked them for coming. I asked if they wanted champagne. No one suspected a thing. Megan was late. Of course, she was. She always liked walking into a full room. It gave her time to make an entrance. She stepped out of the elevator in a red dress that probably cost more than our couch. Hair perfect. Smile on autopilot. Tyler wasn't with her, obviously. She was smarter than that. Or maybe she knew this night was meant to impress a different audience, her boss, the executives, the LinkedIn crowd. People clapped when she entered. Her eyes lit up, just like I planned. She touched her chest like she couldn't believe it. She mouthed, "Thank you," to no one in particular. Then she saw me. And she smiled like nothing had ever broken between us. That was the last time she would smile that night. As she moved toward the center of the rooftop, soaking up the praise, I gave a nod to the DJ. The music faded mid-verse. Someone laughed nervously. Megan looked up, confused, but still in control, still assuming this was just another moment meant for her. Then the lights went out. A hush swept over the rooftop. And the projector turned on. It started simple. The first slide, our house's front porch. A timestamp. Then the next, Tyler stepping through the front door with a gym bag, glancing around like he knew he shouldn't be there. More clips followed. Him arriving. Leaving. Sometimes twice a day. Always when I was at work. Always when she said she was at yoga. Then came the screenshots. Text messages. Emojis. Plans made while I was upstairs sleeping. Nicknames that made my skin crawl. One had her telling him I was so sweet it made her sick. Another had him asking if I'd ever suspect anything. She replied, "He trusts me too much." The room was dead silent. Then came the receipts. Hotel bookings. Gift shop purchases. 2 drinks, 1 bed, charged to our joint account. Venmo transfers with coy descriptions like, "just the tip face blowing a kiss." I let it play slow. Each slide holding long enough for people to absorb it before the next hit landed. Some people gasped. A few covered their mouths. Megan just stood there, locked in place, her arms now limp at her sides. Her eyes darted to the crowd, then to me. She looked for a lifeline. There wasn't one. The final slide was the scan of the divorce papers. My signature already there. Just waiting for hers. And then, right on cue, the banner dropped from the ceiling. A white satin ribbon with bold black letters. "Congrats on being single again." Laughter broke the silence, soft at first, from the back of the room, then a ripple through the crowd. Not cruel laughter. Just shock. Disbelief. A few people turned away. Others just stared. She didn't speak. Didn't move. Her face was drained of color, frozen in the kind of public humiliation no social media post could ever spin into a win. I walked up slowly. Not to her, just past her. I hugged her mother. Her hands trembled in mine. I wasn't sure if it was shame, sympathy, or both. I shook her father's hand. His grip was weak, stunned. He looked down at the floor, like maybe it would open and swallow him whole. Then I turned to her boss. He gave a polite, tight smile. The kind of smile you give when you know a resume just became radioactive. No words were spoken. None were needed. I turned, took one last look at the rooftop, and walked toward the elevator. The doors opened silently. I stepped in. As they began to close, I caught one final glimpse of Megan, still standing under the banner, her perfect red dress crumpled by the weight of her own undoing. I didn't look back. The moment the elevator doors sealed, everything went still. For the first time in months, my body felt weightless. Like I'd finally dropped a burden I'd been pretending wasn't there. I didn't get revenge. Not really. All I did was give the truth a stage. And let her perform her own downfall. After the party, silence followed, but not the kind Megan had mastered. This one had weight. It stretched across group chats, office gossip, and dinner tables where people pretended to talk about anything else. No one said much in public. But behind the scenes, everything started to unravel. She tried to spin it. Of course she did. Claimed it was a prank. Said she and I were experimenting with performance art or pushing boundaries. When that didn't land, she pivoted again, told people I'd hacked her phone, twisted the footage, manipulated it all to humiliate her. She framed it as emotional abuse disguised as theater. The irony wasn't lost on me. But her story had holes. Big ones. And I had more than just video clips. I had bank statements. GPS logs. Texts. My lawyer had compiled it all before the party even started. The digital breadcrumbs were so clear even her most loyal defenders couldn't piece together a believable counternarrative. The real problem for Megan wasn't just the content, it was the audience. Her boss had been there. So had her department head. Her parents. Friends who still remembered our wedding, who had toasted to forever with us just 5 years ago. It's hard to play the victim when your betrayal is projected on a rooftop screen with timestamps and receipts. Her job moved fast. At first, it was a polite internal review. Then, a sudden and very public announcement that she was on indefinite leave pending ethical concerns. The subtext wasn't subtle. The company she used to brag about on LinkedIn wanted nothing to do with her drama. The press release never named me, but it didn't have to. Tyler, Tier X, jumped ship quicker than anyone. He ghosted within 48 hours. Wiped his tagged photos, unfollowed her, posted some vaguely spiritual quote about negative energy and choosing peace. The guy had muscles for days but not an ounce of backbone. She'd staked her entire emotional escape plan on him, and he crumbled the second it got real. Meanwhile, my phone lit up like Times Square. Some messages were apologies, old friends who admitted they'd noticed something off but didn't want to get involved. Others were impressed. Curious. They wanted to know how I'd pulled it off, what software I used, how long I'd been planning it. I answered the first few. Then I stopped. It wasn't a show to me. It was survival. A few people tried to defend her. They said the humiliation was too much, that I went too far. Maybe. But no one asked how far she'd gone when she turned our marriage into a side project. No one asked how it felt to sit across from someone at dinner knowing full well they were texting the man they told you not to worry about. My lawyer called me 3 days after the party. The prenup we signed back when we were young and in love was airtight. She got nothing. Not the house. Not the savings. Not the pension. Nothing but her own name, and even that had taken a hit. The funny part? I didn't feel triumphant. There was no fist pump. No celebration. Just a quiet sense of rightness. Like I'd finally reset the balance. I hadn't destroyed her. I just stopped shielding her from the consequences of her own choices. That was the difference between us. She was always performing. Carefully curated smiles, tearful Instagram captions, perfectly timed vulnerability in therapy, every move designed to control the narrative. For months, maybe longer, she played the victim in a story where I was cast as the distant, cold husband. She sold that role well. I played my part, too quiet, supportive, too exhausted to correct her version of events. But now the curtain had dropped. And all the costume changes in the world couldn't disguise what people had seen with their own eyes. Megan cracked slowly. Not in public, she was too proud for that, but privately, in the places that used to give her power. Her friend circle splintered. Some unfollowed her. Others stayed but stopped liking her posts. Her mother, once her loudest cheerleader, reached out to me. Not to apologize, just to say she was heartbroken. I believed her. The truth is, I didn't hate Megan. Not even after everything. What I hated was the performance, the months of being treated like a villain while she rehearsed her exit behind my back. What I hated was the gaslighting, the moral superiority she wore like perfume, the way she made betrayal look like empowerment. She used therapy as a smokescreen. Used my silence as proof of guilt. She told stories about growth, healing, rediscovery. But she never told the truth. Not once. Until I did. Now, the roles had reversed. I was the one people looked at differently, but not with pity. With clarity. And Megan? She was no longer the wounded wife climbing the corporate ladder. She was the woman who got exposed, on camera, in a red dress, under a banner that told the truth more efficiently than a courtroom ever could. She wasn't angry, from what I heard. Not yet. Just quiet. Spooked. Like someone who stepped onto a stage thinking the spotlight was hers, only to find out it was a mirror the whole time. The difference between truth and performance. One holds up when the lights go out. The other fades. The first night in the new place was quiet in a way I hadn't felt in years. Not the uncomfortable kind, not the kind that waits to be filled. This one settled over me like a blanket. No tension. No walking on eggshells. Just silence that felt earned. I sat on the small balcony of my apartment, legs kicked up on the railing, sipping a beer that cost less than the tip I used to leave at her favorite brunch spots. The view wasn't much, just rooftops, trees, and a flickering streetlight. But it was mine. No one was watching the clock. No one was tracking my tone. I didn't have to smile on cue. I didn't have to perform anything. Peace, as it turns out, is loud in its own way. Not because it demands attention, but because it leaves room for everything you'd buried. There were no grand fireworks in the end. No dramatic final showdown. What ended us didn't come with sirens or slammed doors. It came slowly, like water wearing down a stone. One skipped dinner. One cold shoulder. One fake excuse after another. It wasn't one thing. It was every little thing she thought I wouldn't notice. I used to wonder if it would have been easier if she'd just left. If she'd screamed, packed a bag, and walked out one day. At least that would have been honest. Instead, she stayed and chipped away at us, smiling the whole time. Pretending she was building something when all she was doing was erasing what we had, piece by piece. And for a long time, I let her. I used to think loyalty meant silence. That real love was about waiting. Enduring. That if someone was slipping away, the job was to hold on tighter. I thought that's what commitment looked like. I told myself love was supposed to hurt sometimes. I didn't realize there's a difference between fighting for someone and fighting for the version of them they stopped being a long time ago. When I left that party, when the elevator doors closed and I was finally alone, I didn't feel revenge. I felt release. I had let go of something I didn't even realize I was carrying, the need to prove I'd been the good guy all along. The need to win some invisible argument. The need to be understood by someone who was never really listening. She made me question myself so often that I forgot how solid I actually was. That's what betrayal does. It doesn't just lie to you, it makes you lie to yourself. Makes you smaller so the other person can feel bigger. Makes you apologize for noticing the truth. And once you shrink enough times, you start to believe you deserve the space they leave behind. But sitting there, in that cheap lawn chair, watching the city wind down, I felt full for the first time. Not with rage. Not with sadness. Just clarity. I wasn't mourning her anymore. I was mourning the man I used to be, the one who believed intimacy would fix everything, who bent backwards to fit a story that was already being rewritten without him. That version of me needed to be buried. And I had done exactly that. She'd always said she wanted to be celebrated. Wanted something unforgettable. And I gave her exactly that. But the truth is, the party wasn't for her. Not really. It was for me. It was my way of walking out with my head up, without screaming or begging or turning into something ugly. It was a clean cut. Public. Final. A reminder that even when someone lies with a straight face, the truth has its own gravity. You just have to stop trying to fight it. Some people said I went too far. That maybe it was cruel. But they didn't see the 1,000 tiny ways she'd hollowed me out before I ever pressed play on that projector. They didn't see the mornings I stared at her across the breakfast table, wondering if I'd imagined all of it, because she smiled like nothing was wrong. I didn't need to ruin her. I just needed to stop letting her ruin me. And now, here I am. No more stage. No more audience. No more second-guessing if the story was mine to tell. She thought the party was for her. And in a way, it was. A farewell party for the woman she pretended to be.